In the wake of the announcement of the incoming Pfizer genetically altering vax, Ticketmaster proposes plan to track guests' CV status. Right after they came out with the announcement of the incoming vax, which is, they're saying, going to be ready sometime in December and ready for the masses sometime in mid-2021, which is what the president was saying, not for nothing, but we'll just keep going with that because remember, they said that was completely irrational and that we would at best be able to have the first doses out to people before winter of next year. At best. Right. Well, the election's over, so now we get the timeline. It's Trump's timeline. Anyways, in the wake of that announcement, Ticketmaster, of all places, is outlining what they plan to do to track their patrons. There's no doubt that recent news of Pfizer's CV vaccine has people flipping their lids with excitement, with the hope that maybe the new normal may soon return to the old normal. But no one seems as excited as Ticketmaster. Now, the event ticketing giant has unveiled a plan to screen people's CV status before being approved to purchase tickets and events. A while back, maybe, 5 months ago or something like that, I don't know. I made an episode called The Mask, the Apps, and the Vax. And it was about the order in which they were going to do all this and how one is preparation for the next. Because all three things, the mask, the tracking apps, and the vax, they all have the same things in common. They're pushing for them to be reinforced through societal peer pressure. They're telling you that you don't carry the app, you don't have the mask, you don't take the vax for yourself. You're doing it for the goodness of humanity. And that peer pressure is put back onto you. And it's getting progressively worse. First, it was the masks. Now the masks are pretty well accepted, and they're talking about a possible national mask mandate if Biden does indeed become the president. So that's moved along quite nicely. The apps had to take a back seat for a little while because, fortunately, they started coming out that they weren't exactly effective at contact tracing, which, let's be honest, they've not been good at that at all. Bunny trails. But this is part of the implementation of... It's like this in-between area between the app and the vax. Now we're going to start talking about tracking the vax. And the people who designed Operation Warp Speed, they have a computer system that's going to be designed to do just that. It's going to work across multiple platforms with the government and with the shipping companies and with God knows what else. But let's get back into this. Ticketmaster's proposed verification system, which is still in the developmental phase and poses many logistical what-ifs, is detailed in an exclusive published by Billboard. It would require a whole lot of technology, some of which has yet to be approved by the FDA. First, a fan would purchase a ticket via the Ticketmaster digital ticket smartphone app. This would help eliminate the selling or transfer of tickets, which could put concert goers at risk of mingling with people who have not been officially vetted by Ticketmaster's master plan. That's right, eliminating scalping. Right. At this point, fans would have to produce one of the following pieces of information: their CV vax status, or a negative CV test result taken within 24 to 72 hours before the event. Next, the fan is responsible for instructing the lab where they got the test or vaccine to then relay that information to a third-party health screening company like Clear or IBM, who would then send the result information to Ticketmaster. If a fan tests positive or did not provide testing results, they will be denied access to the event. For those who have been vaccinated or tested negative, Ticketmaster would release the digital ticket and other necessary credentials to attend. Per Billboard, Ticketmaster wouldn't have access to people's medical records, just the verification of their CV status. So this is a very key sentence in this entire thing because this is the direction in which they're going. We can all know your CV status because it's not part of your medical records. We're going to keep it separated. That way it does not apply. None of your privacy protections that you would typically have are going to apply to this. Back in the days where the vaccine companies went to the government and said, we can't make these products at a cost-effective way if we're going to be open to liability. So they were lobbying to have it made illegal for them to be sued, which they were successful in doing. But the main way that they did it was by not labeling vaccines as medicine. They're called biologics. And under this new term, biologics, you don't have the same rules applied to them. And at the end of the day, the fact that they're biologics is also going to allow this whole situation to supersede the sacrosanct tradition in America of private medical records. That said, according to Billboard, the FDA has not approved any third-party companies to provide the complex technology needed to deliver real-time vax results. They do have the system. It was just developed, and the name of the system is Tiberius, and it was developed by the Army. So technically they're not lying. It's not a third party. Though many industries are advocating for the approval and accessibility of these services. So what they're saying is the infrastructure isn't built to do this yet. And by this, I mean transfer the known vax status for an individual in relation to CV to all corners of the country. They want to make a system that has only CV vax for right now. And inevitably it'll have everything, but for right now, because they have to separate it. They have to say, look, we're not asking for access to your medical records. We're just asking for access to your CV records. So they've already separated that out. Later on down the line, they'll add the rest of your medical record to the CV side of things. That's shareable with everybody. But right now, they want to make people feel safe. Oh, they're not going to know my whole medical history, just whether I haven't had the CV and whether I haven't had the vax. And they're going to share this information with everybody, from the movie theater to Walgreens, everybody. Ticketmaster's not really addressing the issues. They're not trying to. They're trying to introduce the idea of being restrictive to people based off of their vaccine. And let me tell you something. It starts here. It starts just like when they start censoring people. They start with the most out there people to censor. When they're going to start this, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to start with the most frivolous things to do for fun. It'll be entertainment that goes first. Entertainment will go first. And then by the end of it, it'll be you can't even go buy food without it. Because just like in the same way as they remove people and censor people, you're like, okay, they took Alex Jones, and you're like, oh, and then, they come in and they take the next guy and the next guy, and you're like, okay, and then the next thing you know, everybody that you were watching on YouTube is gone, and you don't know how that happened. That's kind of the way that this is going to go down. Ticketmaster will start implementing this stuff, but it'll only be for volunteers. People are just like, hey, if you don't want to do it, then don't go to the concert. And then it'll be at sporting events. And then everybody's going to be like, hey, man, this is football. You tell me I can't go watch a football game? Yeah, hey, listen, you don't have to go watch football. You can watch football at the house. And then it'll be to go to the grocery store. And you'll be like, wow. And then, everybody knows the medical community is going to have to get it. But then it'll be your job. And before it's over, you're going to have a little record that you keep with you that you're going to have to scan before you walk inside any store. Just something to think about. Yeah, so I thought that you guys would think that was wild. I think it's pretty wild. And it actually got me kind of on a little bit of a CV kick. So I figured, why the hell not catch up on some CV stuff? And right when I was thinking that, something fell into my lap. Remember when the mouth Fauci was hammering away at HCQ, saying it was the worst thing on the planet Earth, which is just still the strangest thing in the whole world. But he was just lambasting HCQ, and then he had that that press conference with Trump where they were sitting around in one of the rooms in the White House, and he was just going on and on and on and on and on about remdesivir, da 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 da. And I was like, dude. And he's like, so basically he was like, we finally have our number one first random controlled study. And it's like, dude, what the hell? And he just wouldn't shut up about it. And then the more he talked, if you had half a brain, you were like, okay, remdesivir freaking sucks. It sucks bad. Like he's like, it could be shown to shorten the stay in the hospital. It's like, what? And okay, and just for the record, it is out the wazoo expensive, and it can only be given intravenously. Okay, so I'm gonna just watch this video of Dr. Fauci talking about how amazing remdesivir is, and then remember now, because of his dumb, amazed obsession with the drug that the company that he worked for, Gilead, because Gilead made remdesivir, and Fauci had several research grants from Gilead to work on AIDS medications. So he was all about Gilead's remdesivir to the point where he was just trashing HCQ, which, by the way, right now is the most commonly prescribed medicine throughout the world for the CV, just saying. But he was hammering it, and he was like, then remdesivir come around, he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, how awesome. Number one, a drug you can't give the patient until they get into the hospital, so you break the first rule about treating any patient, which is treat early and often, right? So you wait for them to be hospitalized, and then you have to give them intravenous amounts of this over and over again, and once you're in the hospital, you're in a much lower chance of surviving already. It is insane. But look at how amazed Fauci was by this beat-ass, worthless study. Listen to him sing his praises, because I'm going to let you listen to something else after that. All right, full disclosure, guys, I don't like Anthony Fauci. Yeah, don't like him. Don't like the way he looks. I don't like his little face. I don't like nothing about him. I don't like the fact that he was one of the only proponents of gain-of-function research before all this happened. I don't like the fact that he gave contracts to the Wuhan lab in China. I don't like the fact that everything is sketchy around HIV, just like everything is sketchy around the CV. I don't like him. I don't like him. All right. Now watch this. Remember, HCQ bad, remdesivir good.
Plus individuals. So it is the first truly high-powered randomized placebo-controlled trial. It was an international trial involving multiple sites, not only in the United States, but in various countries throughout the world, including Germany, Denmark, Spain, Greece, the UK, etc.
It's a high-powered.
The primary endpoint was the time to recovery, namely the ability to be discharged.
The medicine did not cure the disease whatsoever. They didn't even want to see if it did. They're saying the best thing that we saw here in our statistics was how quickly the disease presented and went away. And they're saying remdesivir shortened that time.
When you have a study like this, we have a data and safety monitoring board, which looks at the data. And they are independent, so there's no prejudice on the part of the investigators because they're doing the trial or the drug is from a certain.
So this is a direct shot at Zelenko and the French doctor who had come out with thousands and thousands and thousands of examples in their studies about why HCQ was effective, and Fauci had shot at them saying that it wasn't a true randomized placebo study, and they shot back, well, neither are any of the studies around vaccines, and then it all got lost in the mix.
Company. The Data and Safety Monitoring Board on Monday afternoon contacted me on April 27th, first on Friday, the week before, and then again on April 27th, and notified the study team, namely the multiple investigators who are doing the study throughout the world, that the data shows that remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant, positive effect in diminishing the time to recovery. This is really quite important for a number of reasons, and I'll give you the data. It's highly significant. If you look at
It's highly significant.
the time to recovery being shorter in the remdesivir arm, it was 11 days compared to 15 days. That's a p-value for the scientists who are listening of 0.001.
Oh my God.
So that's something that,
Wow.
although a 31% improvement doesn't seem like a knockout 100%, it
Well, no, it doesn't seem like even a third, which would have been 33%, right, Fauci?
is a very important proof of concept, because
Oh, it's a proof of concept.
what it is proven is that a drug can block this virus. And I'll give you an example in a moment.
Keep in mind that he's saying this in the face. This was right in the middle of the HCQ entire thing blowing up. It was obvious to anybody with even a lick of common sense that this virus could be blocked because it was being blocked.
We think looking forward, this is very optimistic. The mortality rate trended towards being better in the sense of less deaths in the
Nice spin there, Doc.
8% versus 11% in the placebo group. It has not yet reached statistical significance, but the data needs to be further analyzed. The reason why we're making the announcement now is something that I believe people don't fully appreciate. Whenever you have clear-cut evidence that a drug works, you have an ethical obligation to immediately let the people who are in the placebo group know so that they could have access. And all of the other trials that are taking place now have a new standard of care. So we would have normally waited several days until the data gets further, dot the I and cross the T. But the data are not going to change. Some of the numbers may change a little, but the conclusion will not change. So when I was looking at this data with our team the other night, it was reminiscent of 34 years ago in 1986 when we were struggling for drugs for HIV. And we had nothing. And there was a lot of anecdotal reports about things that maybe did work, maybe not. People were taking different kinds of drugs.
That's a direct shot at HCQ. Everything about this talk right here is to make HCQ look like a bad thing and look like it's not effective. And look at how effective and officially done this is.
And we did the first randomized placebo-controlled trial with AZT, which turned out to give an effect that was modest. But that was not the end game.
So that's the little leprechaun, right? Talking about his beloved Remdesivir, which is made by Gilead, which is a company that he's gotten government contracts for, research grants and money, kickbacks, all of it. You name it. And nobody said anything. Well, I mean, me and some other truthers screaming at the sun, but for what it's worth. Well, I saw this today, and I thought this was interesting. And I'm wondering how Mr. Fauci is going to respond to this.
The organisation could not be any clearer in its advice today. It does not recommend the use of antiviral drug Remdesivir to treat hospitalised coronavirus patients, no matter how sick they are. The warning comes as part of the organisation's regular review into COVID-19 treatments. It says its findings indicate that the drug doesn't help improve survival rates or reduce the need for medical ventilation in patients with breathing difficulties. The announcement will prompt some awkward questions for health officials in the United States, who just over a month ago approved the use of Remdesivir for sick coronavirus patients. The maker of the drug, Gilead, had earlier applied for emergency use of Remdesivir to America's Food and Drug Administration. That application was approved, and since then, some hospitalised patients have been receiving the medicine as part of their treatment. The drug was even taken by US President Donald Trump when he contracted the virus, and in July, his administration boasted of buying up much of the world's supplies of the drug, leaving little for governments in other parts of the world. But that decision will likely now be scrutinised, with the World Health Organization saying its review included data from over 7,000 patients involved in 4 separate trials. And after analysing the evidence for those administered Remdesivir, they've determined that those sick with coronavirus might well be better off without it. Questions are now also being asked here in Europe. Just last month, the European Commission signed a deal with Gilead to purchase 500,000 doses of Remdesivir. Well, following that announcement from the World Health Organization, a spokesman for the Commission says Brussels has officially asked the WHO for their latest data in order to determine whether any changes are needed to the drug's authorized use status across Europe. Trent Murray, CGTN, Frankfurt.
So let's review here, right? Gilead, who has a little stooge named Anthony the Mouth Fauci, has their little stooge go on national TV during these CV press conferences and have him play down the effectiveness of HCQ in the face of massive amounts of evidence. They give him a specific way to refute HCQ and make it look better than Remdesivir, and that is a placebo-controlled double-blind study official. So they get it together, they give it to Fauci. Fauci broadcasts it to the world at that press conference. And what happens? The United States, the entire European Union, India, every major country in the world moves to buy up as much of that drug as they can. Gilead, who's selling it for $1,000 a dose, compared to HCQs, which is like, I don't know, it's less than $20 for the whole treatment. Gilead's selling so much of it, they're sold out. And now the WHO says that they do not recommend this be used in the treatment of CV at all, under any circumstances. None, not a bit. But these countries have already bought those doses of Remdesivir. Boy, I bet you they wish they had held on to their money. This is the second lie we've caught Fauci in. Because you know the first one that the mouth did, and that was the mask lie. And I've done a whole episode on the mask lie, but so we're not going to go back there. But so now we have him lying about the masks. You don't need them, don't wear them. And then, oh, I was just lying to you because I needed them for my people. And it's like, dude, you could have just asked us and we would have taken one at a time. Like, why'd you lie? Same thing here. I want to know, why did you lie? Why did you work so hard to push down HCQ when currently it is the most prescribed medicine to treat CV in the world? You can go and look up the surveys of the doctors. You don't see it in any of the mainstream media, but if you survey doctors on the ground, it's overwhelmingly the number one treatment in the world. And remember, guys, there's a lot of other people in the world besides just the US. There's a coalition of doctors who have come together in the United States specifically around HCQ. It's bizarre what's happening. As a matter of fact, hold on a second. It's truly been no secret that this has been the case for quite some time with the HCQ. This is a company called Sermo who did a real-time Barometer study, and they basically interviewed physicians all around the world about the CV and what they were prescribing. So what did these high speeds find? Well, they find the three most commonly prescribed treatments are 56% analgesics, that's Tylenol and such, 41% azithromycin, that's the antibiotic, and 33% HCQ. HCQ usage was 49% in Italy, 41% in Brazil. HCQ was chosen as the most effective therapy from a list of 15 options. And this was in the midst of all of this. If you look at the center column here, you have, first of all the countries over to the left, and then HCQ or chloroquine is down in the center line there. If you look at all the other drugs, they're really not treatment drugs. They're actually drugs that are to treat symptoms, not that sickness itself, which HCQ did. Importantly, it's at the top of the chart in every country it's used in. Not to mention the fact that they just recently found CV in patients that were waiting. They had blood sample tests that they decided to test for CV, and what happens? Well, it comes back that a bunch of people in Italy had CV in September of 2019, because that makes perfect sense. Oh, and don't get me started on the whole missing link thing that's showing up in the CV study. Of course, there's a missing link. They couldn't quite put evolution together well, so they just named one of the steps the missing link, you know? It's kind of like junk DNA. Might be 99% of DNA, but we don't understand it, so it's junk. Well, here we got another one. It's the CV missing link. We see bat CV with ocelots equaled SARS, and bat CV with camels equaled MERS, but bat CV with what? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Still, nobody knows. But it's panglions. No. There's no proof that it's been any of those suggestions, and just so you know, they've suggested a lot. This is all completely out of control. What a damn mess. Welcome to the channel, guys. We're on BitChute. And it's honestly hilarious how the rest of the country's moved on now, so nobody wants to talk about, articles like this. The key to defeating the CV already exists. We need to start using it. Well, hey, if it exists, I would say that's probably a good statement. Oh, who is this? Who is this guy? It's got to be some crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist, right? Harvey Richreich MD PhD, professor of epidemiology, Yale. As professor of epidemiology at Yale School of Public Health, I have authored over 300 peer-reviewed publications and currently hold senior positions on the editorial boards of several leading journals. I am usually accustomed to advocating for positions within the mainstream of medicine, so have been flummoxed to find that, in the midst of a crisis, I am fighting for a treatment that the data fully support, but which, for reasons having nothing to do with a correct understanding of the science, has been pushed to the sidelines. As a result, tens of thousands of patients with CV are dying unnecessarily, says the Yale epidemiologist. Fortunately, the situation can be reversed easily and quickly. Can it, though? Can it, Mr. Risch? I am referring, of course, to the medication HCQ. When this inexpensive oral medication is given very early in the course of illness, before the virus has had time to multiply beyond control, it has shown to be highly effective, especially when given in combination with the antibiotics azithromycin or doxycycline and the nutritional supplement zinc. Now, we've covered all this on this channel ad nauseum, so we're not going to go down that road again. On May 27th, I published an article in the American Journal of Epidemiology entitled Early Outpatient Treatment of Symptomatic High-Risk CV Patients That Should Be Ramped Up Immediately as Key to the Pandemic Crisis. That article, published in the world's leading epidemiology journal, analyzed 5 studies demonstrating clear-cut and significant benefits to treated patients, plus other very large studies that showed the medication's safety. Physicians who have been using these medications in the face of widespread skepticism have been truly heroic. They have done what the science shows is best for their patients, often at great personal risk. I myself know of 2 doctors who have saved the lives of hundreds of patients with these medications, but are now fighting state medical boards to save their licenses and reputations. The cases against them are completely without scientific merit. Beyond these studies of individual patients, we have seen what happens in large populations when these drugs are used. These have been natural experiments. In the northern Brazil state of Pará, CV deaths were increasing exponentially. On April 6, the public hospital network purchased 75,000 doses of zithromycin and 90,000 doses of HCQ. Over the next weeks, authorities began distributing these medications to infected individuals. Even though new cases continued to occur, on May 22nd, the death rate started to plummet and is now about 1/8 what it was at the peak. And that's what was going on with us. They kept only reporting new numbers because they couldn't report new deaths because it was not the same mortality rate. And we talked about it back when they said it was what it was. I told you then it wasn't going to be that because Fauci had already put in the New England Journal of Medicine that it was going to be as bad as a bad flu. So we never bought that, but a lot of people did. And the unfortunate thing is they're not even aware that the death rate has plummeted because doctors are actually prescribing this medication. A reverse natural experiment happened in Switzerland. On May 27, the Swiss national government banned outpatient use of HCQ for CV. Around June 10, CV deaths increased fourfold and remained elevated. On June 11, the Swiss government revoked the ban, and on June 23, the death rate reverted to what it had been beforehand. People who die from CV live about 3 to 5 weeks from the start of symptom, which makes the evidence of a causal relation in these experiments strong. Both episodes suggest that a combination of HCQ and its companion medications reduces mortality and should be immediately adopted as the new standard of care for high-risk patients. And remember what Dr. Fauci said in the previous video. The thing that's so great about Remdesivir is it establishes a new standard of care. No, it didn't. It didn't introduce a new standard of care. So why has HCQ been disregarded? First, as all know, the medication has become highly politicized. For many, it is viewed as a marker of political identity on both sides of the political spectrum. Nobody needs me to remind them that this is not how medicine should proceed. We must judge this medication strictly on the science. When doctors graduate from medical school, they formally promise to make the health and life of the patient their first consideration, without biases of race, religion, nationality, social standing, or political affiliation. Lives must come first. Second, the drug has not been used properly in many studies. HCQ has shown major successes when used in high-risk people, but as one would expect for an antiviral, much less success when used late in the disease course. Even so, it has demonstrated significant benefit in large hospital studies in Michigan and New York City when started within the first 24 to 48 hours after admission. And this is true. We went through every study that they tried to come out to hit HCQ, and we destroyed them. We demolished those studies. We even demolished the Lancet paper before they retracted it. In fact, an inexpensive, oral, and widely available medication and a nutritional supplement, the combination of HCQ, azithromycin or doxycycline, and zinc are well suited for early treatment in an outpatient setting. The combination should be prescribed in high-risk patients immediately upon clinical suspicion of CV, without waiting for results of testing. Delays in waiting before starting the medications can reduce their efficacy. Third, concerns have been raised by the FDA and others about risks of cardiac arrhythmia. That should just say third, the CIA said, especially when HCQ is given in combination with azithromycin. The FDA based its comments on data in its FDA Adverse Event Reporting System. This reporting system captured up to 1,000 cases of arrhythmias contributed to by HCQ use. In fact, the number is likely higher than that, since the reporting system, which requires physicians or patients to initiate contact with the FDA, appreciably undercounts drug side effects. But what the FDA did not announce is that these adverse events were generated from tens of millions of patient uses of HCQ for long periods of time, often for the chronic treatment of lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. Even if the true rates of arrhythmia are tenfold higher than those reported, the harms would be minuscule compared to the mortality occurring right now in inadequately treated high-risk CV patients. This fact is proven by an Oxford University study of more than 320,000 older patients taking both HCQ and azithromycin who had arrhythmia access death rates less than 9 out of 100,000 users. As I discuss in my May 27 paper cited above, a new paper in the American Journal of Medicine by established cardiologists around the world fully agrees with this. In the future, I believe this misbegotten episode regarding HCQ will be studied by sociologists of medicine as a classic example of how extra scientific factors overrode clear-cut medical evidence. For now, reality demands a clear scientific eye on the evidence and where it points for the sake of high-risk patients, for the sake of our parents and grandparents, for the sake of the unemployed, for our economy, and for our polity. Immediately. Harvey Richreich MD PhD is a professor of epidemiology at Yale School of Public Health. Fire Fauci. So that's all on the CV this episode. I'm making episodes, still working hard. I'm also doing some experimenting, guys, with some new software programs. I'm having to learn a lot. I'm having to change a lot. I just got a new laptop, and so hopefully I'll be able to step my game up as far as presentation is concerned. My week ban from YouTube is still in effect, and after I'm allowed back onto that platform, I will probably re-upload these uploads I've been doing to BitChute. Basically, I'll be doing what I did in reverse. Before, I was uploading all my videos to YouTube, and then I would mirror them onto BitChute. Now, I'm uploading to BitChute and mirroring them to YouTube. If you would like to see the videos first, you'll need to look for them on BitChute. If you guys would like to support the channel in any way, all the ways that you can support the channel will be below. Content creators that I still send money to this day because they make good content and I want them around, so I support them. Anyways, guys, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. That is the most important thing you could do to help me. Period, point blank, end of story. I really want the channel to grow. I want more people to get involved. I want people in the comment sections to be talking more and more because I like when there's contrary opinions in the comment sections, things that get us thinking. We want it to be a wash tub of good, fresh ideas, and they're not always right, and I'm okay with that. But we need to get the conversation going. All right, y'all. Peace.